Community is everything. That's our village, right? I mean, if you see people that are isolated, it's because they feel like they don't belong to a community.
Claudia, thanks for joining us on the Fireside Chat.
It's an honor for me to be here today.
You currently call Novato, California, your home. As a mom of four, can you tell us what you like, what you enjoy about your city, what you enjoy about your community?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Northern California, it's very green. So, me being an environmentalist, I really love it out here. There's a lot of nature, there's a lot of places to go. California has a huge diversity. Marin County, it's has become a lot more diversity lately. So it's a good place to raise a family. It's very family oriented. But I do have to tell you, I landed here kind of by force. It wasn't my choice to live here. This is where I moved to when I immigrated to the USA, and I kind of have lived here all over 30 years. I have to say too that Marin County is one of the most expensive counties in California, so it is very expensive to live here.
How have you seen that change, or has it changed over the years when you first moved here as a child to now having children of your own?
Yeah, so like I remember when I moved here, like back in 1993, like the Hispanic community, we all knew each other, right? We knew who was who. We would run into stores and we could tell who it was. That's not the case anymore. So it's a great diversity now for sure. It has really grown within the Hispanic population. I feel that there's a lot of more resources too. And in rent, like going into expenses, like I remember we used to live in a two-bedroom apartment, which was like maybe like $700. The two-bedroom apartments here are going no less than 2,900 here. Yeah. So a one-bedroom apartment here is like $2,400, 2,500. So it's definitely rent has increased, prices has increased, but also the population and diversity has increased.
Do you see any other challenges besides the cost of living?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges. We have our county has experienced like more crime. With more population, there's more crime, right? There's more poverty, there's more challenges as far as like homeless. There's a large homeless population, and that goes with saying because of the price of the rents, right? So that is a huge challenge, or not only the county, but like each city, right? Like as a city, we see that every city in the county. I think also there is in my personal opinion, I feel like we could use a lot more of our culture, like, and not just Hispanic, but like events and things that will engage the community and also like inform the community about the different cultures um, that we represent here in the county. Also, I feel like that's a little limited and that's a challenge, right? Because then the community doesn't feel welcome, doesn't feel like they belong to the community if they're not being represented, not only like in events and cultural celebrations, but at the policy level and government, in schools and so forth.
Why do you feel community is what is needed?
Well, community is everything. That's our village, right? I mean, if you see people that are isolated, it's because they feel like they don't belong to a community. Community could be your family, community could be your work, community could be your school, community could be where you live. And all of those are equally important, right? And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that feel lonely. There's a lot of teenagers. I mean, we don't have a lot of teenager activities here in our county, which is hard because then that drives for teenagers to drink, to be doing things they're not supposed to be doing, hanging out in places where, you know what I mean? So it's just like a domino effect, right? So having community, it empowers you. It gives you a sense of belonging and gives you a place. It's a safe place.
Do you see organizations and leaders within the community that are trying to make sure that some of those things exist?
Yes, absolutely. So, like Marine Community Foundation is one of it's the program that I run, like the guaranteed income program that you mentioned that I participated in. So they try to really do a lot of be involved in different areas of the community. There's also political leaders that, like our board of supervisors, two that I personally know are really trying to be involved and do things for the community. Whether it be like, creating programs or being present at events, reaching out to community and just being out there, right? But it's everybody's work, right? It's not one person's job. It's everybody needs to pitch in and collaborate to be able to build that community.
I'd like to talk about your job. What do you currently do for a living?
So besides being a student, which I'm only a student for 4 more days because then I'll be graduating on Saturday with my bachelor's of science. I work as a project. Thank you. I'm super excited. As you can tell, it's been a 12-year journey, so it's definitely worth celebrating. But I'm a I wear a lot of hats. I'm a project manager for a conservation agency. I work with small farmers and developing information education in regards to drought resilience. So connect them to California funds that can help them to invest in their farms or kind of help them to come out of a hard situation due to drought challenges. I also work as a excuse me, as an undergrad researcher. I'm part of 3 different teams at my school, and I also do civic engagement with my county. So I'm a planning commissioner for my county as well.
Planning commissioner too? That's
Yes.
amazing. So let's take a moment to just celebrate you. In the comments, we already have a lot of people saying congratulations. You were able to join us during finals week, so that's even more of a round of applause for you. What are you majoring in? What are you going to walk across the stage having accomplished?
Yes, I told you I'm unstoppable. Thank you. So I'm getting my bachelor's of science in environmental science, geography, and management, with an emphasis in environmental policy. I'm also obtaining a minor in geology and then a minor in sustainability. So I'll be working on Saturday.
Working on Saturday?
Yeah, on like Saturday, 9 a.m. is my commencement. So nobody's counting but me.
I love it. I love it. And we have the cap and gown, right? Everybody has a cap and gown story. A lot of times people decorate the top of that cap. You told me you have a special decoration on it. Even has a picture of a rose and even has a quote that says "Long live the rose that grew from the concrete." Tell us about that. Why that was important to have on your hat.
Yeah, so I had been looking for something since the beginning of the semester, since January, right? And nothing had really given me that aha moment. This is it. And I'm a fan of Tupac, who actually wrote the poem of "The Rose That Grew from the Concrete." So Tupac Shakur was lived in Marin City, which is very close to where I lived, is in the county. And he lived in what they used to call the projects. So he came out of poverty, and you might know him. He became one of the greatest hip hop rappers or hip hop singers of his time. And I've always been a fan of him. And anyways, looking through like just that cap's decorations, I was looking like environmental science, mom's quotes, and nothing really hit until I saw that. And I was like, yes, I am a rose, because that came from the concrete, because my story is not all good and it's, I had faced very hard challenges, and in a way, I feel like I started dry, right? Like I didn't know what I was doing, and I grew, and here I am. I'm blooming, and it's just the beginning of me of what I'm gonna do next. So that's what it resonated really well
I
with
love
me.
that. I love that. Can we spend some time going back to that concrete, back when your story was in Guatemala? Can you tell us about culture, your community there, your upbringing there, those early years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Guatemala until I was like 14 years old. Now don't try to figure out my age. I'll tell you if you ask me. But I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, we can say. I grew up with my grandma until I was 5 years old. My mom was working because she had older kids, so she was kind of working just Monday through Friday and would come and see me on the weekends. And my dad was also doing the same thing because he had kids of his own and he had like another household, right? So in other words, I was born to a second outside of marriage relationship. And so I grew up with my grandma until I was 5. When I was 5, I came to live with my mom and dad when they actually finally started living together. And that only lasted about 2, 3 years. And I just remember like my mom coming to USA and leaving me behind when I was 6 with my dad and with my grandma. And from there, like she went back and then left again. So as you could, probably tell, it was very dysfunctional, not very unstable. And finally, when I was 14, which my mom had been here in the USA for a while, um, Guatemala at the time that I was going, I was a very conservative society, right? There was a lot of things that we weren't supposed to do. And I was the type of child like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do, right? And now that to me now is not a big deal, but like I understand my dad, like he would never allow me to have a boyfriend and he caught me with a boyfriend. So he sent me over to my mom. And it was a little more involved than just that, but I was forced to come and live with my mom. He was like, I can't deal with you. Like, you're not listening to me and you have to go with your mom. So they sent me to the USA. So I came to a mom that I really didn't know. He didn't have a bond with because I had never really grew up with her. And sorry. And left everything behind, everything that I knew. And that was very challenging. It was like, it kind of disengaged me for everything because I was separated from what I knew, and I don't blame my parents because they did what they thought it was best, right? But I have to acknowledge that it was very difficult for me. And so I became to live with a parent that I did not know who had her own way of living. And unfortunately, my mom has some addictions. And then my dad has no addictions. So it was really hard to navigate that as well. And I became disengaged from my family, from, my parents, because I didn't talk to my dad for 16 years after that. And that caused me to, kind of run away from home and do my own thing, be homeless for a while, and until I became pregnant at 17 years old. And just recently I was sharing with somebody that I was homeless when I was pregnant. I was sleeping in a car. And in me, there always had this feeling that I knew that I was meant for something better. My dad had done a really good job at telling me that education was important. And he always showed me that he loved me and he always spent time with me, despite of him being angry when he got me with the boyfriend, right? Like he always made sure that I was well, not only fed, but like time and love and affection. And so I had my baby, and from there it was more of a survival mode, right? Of just trying to really raise my baby and try to do what was best for her, but also trying to live my life as a young mother and really not knowing where I was going. So that was kind of what I relate to the dry concrete, that heart piece. Yeah, it was, and there's so many other challenges, right? So many other things that play a role in during that time and things that happen. But that was the base of me being in the concrete. I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. As you look back at some of those moments where that sleeping in the car, the birth of your first daughter, what are the moments as you look back that make you the most proud of what you've been able to overcome?
I never gave up on life, and I never, in a way, like I never left my daughter, you know what I mean? I'm also proud of myself for just really knowing and listening to my heart that I knew that I was meant for something better. As a young mom, we don't always make the best choices, and it was really hard trying to balance that, trying to be a young person, a young female and having a little girl, so I always knew that I had to be there for her. even though maybe Saturdays I wasn't there because I was out partying, whatever, right? But I look back and I'm like, I know I didn't do my best in those years, but I did my best, and with what I got, with what I knew, I did my best, and I'm proud of that for never really giving up on life and never giving up on her.
Thanks for sharing that as well. What advice or what would you say to someone who is going through, like right now, going through some of the situations that you went through in the past, and now that you have the insight of knowing how things can play out, what would you say in terms of encouragement for someone else?
I think it's the first thing. It's like we prompt to say, like, you're gonna be okay, right? And we want to give that person a hug, but I think it's important to tell them, you're doing good as you are right now. You're doing your best, and talk to me instead of me talking to you. It's like, you tell me, what do you want? You tell me, what is it that you need to let out, you know? And then from there, I think you can choose to say, like, give them options, right? Because when you're in that situation and somebody tells you you're gonna be okay, you're like, well, you don't even really know what I'm going through. Like, you haven't even hear what I got in my mind, what I got in my heart, or what I want to do. So I think the first step is to really listen to what they got on their mind, and then provide choices, possibilities, and then say, you know what, you're gonna be okay. You know what, yeah, maybe you're not so good at where you want to be, but doesn't mean you're gonna be there all the time. So that's my approach.
I love that. I'd love to also take some time to let you brag about your four girls, your two daughters that are adults now, leading their own lives, and then you have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. So can you tell us about Ellen, Karina, Audrey, and Julia?
Yes, of course. So Ellen is my oldest. I call her, she's the light of my eyes. I've always said that, because I also tell her she's a little bit my guinea pig. She was my first child. And my both of my older girls don't live with us anymore. They moved out about 3 years ago or so. And they're really, really amazing girls, and they have worked hard to be where they are too. And I'm not talking about just like financially, and like the hard work, but also like mentally, and just really having their own healing process, because it's not easy coming from parents that come from a dysfunctional family. It's not easy coming from parents that have been parents at teenage years. So, but yeah, Ellen, they both live close and they visit us often. We really have a good relationship. I'm pretty proud to say that at some point in Ellen's life, between 15 and now, she has called me her best friend. And that is priceless. That is truly priceless. And just on Mother's Day, she gave me a present, and she said, it was like a little teacup, right? And she said, Mom, she goes, I know that you are working on healing your inner child. And she said, and I am too. And I'm really proud of you for doing that. So
Wow.
they're really amazing, just overall. And I take pride on that because I know part of that comes from me too. Not all the bad stuck. There's good things that stuck with them. And they're really, really amazing girls. And I tell them, you're far farther away from what I was at your age. And Ellen, it's very community involved as well. She works for a nonprofit organization, and she loves being involved in community and advocating for community rights. And Karina is going to school. She's a junior college and hoping to become a forensic detective. So she's really going at it. And Audrey and Julia, who are my younger ones, they live with us and they're really amazing kids, very articulated, very strong, very determined girls, and involved in dance, gymnastics, and do all sorts of things. And they're really a gift and a blessing to my life, overall.
I'm not surprised you're raising four unstoppable young women.
My girls would change the world, but I have to survive raising them first. So
What
yeah, they are very strong-willed girls.
now? When I first tried to interview you, you were in Oxford, England, and you spent the last month, maybe 2 months overseas. Can you talk to us about why you were over there in the first place, and then what that experience was like?
Yeah, that was a really amazing opportunity, and I'm unstoppable. I'm like, I seek opportunities, and I'm like, it's an opportunity, I take it, right? So last year actually was my first year going to Oxford. I was nominated by a professor to go because there's this, it's called the Oxford Consortium for Human Rights. So it's a yearly conference, and each year has a different theme. Last year the theme was on Martin Luther King and non-violent, community movement, like mobilizing communities through non-violent acts, right? So because of my work in communities and my passion to serve underserved communities, one of my professors nominated me to go to that consortium last year. So it was a school field trip. I went last year, I participated for a week, and got a lot of out of it, right? It's like workshops and networking and just making connections. And this year, I had the opportunity to go back, but I went back as a mentor to the group of students that were representing Sonoma State. And this year was very special because I was able to see the students from the back chair, you know what I mean? And really process what faculty and staff and people that know me have been telling me. And just really recognizing, oh my God, the students are really powerful. Like they have great ideas, like they're really amazing. They're going places, but then thinking that and thinking, wait, this is what I've been hearing, for the last 2 years, and really like processing, like, this is me, like I have this potential. I'm going to do great things. And it was special too, because they recognize my work as a community advocate, you could say, through the Guaranteed Income Program and through my work in undergrad research and as a planning commissioner. So this year, the topic was the crisis of climate change and war, which, communities get displaced, and I'm like the climate change knowledge person in the team. So it was really great. It was a great opportunity. And I look forward to continuing to do work with them, actually.
Well, congratulations about all of that, all of those experiences, and being able to go back and see it from a different perspective. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm curious, what have you learned about being so involved in the networking? What is maybe one or two things that you learned from that?
I think the first thing would be that change is possible, right? Like, and that there's more than, okay, let me just take it back a minute. So I've learned that, yes, the change is possible, right? And there is a lot of people out there really advocating for change. One of the key takeaways for me on going to the consortium was really seeing people from different races wanting to work for change and advocating for people. So, and genuinely caring, there was people from, let's say there was a lot of Caucasian people, a lot of white people that said, I want to use my privilege. I want to use what I have to help communities. And just being on those settings when it's not just you fighting for a change, but other people really being allies and working. That's one of the things I've learned. The second thing, and I think it's really important to me, and it's important, is that once you empower a person for change, they won't stop. Once you help a person realize the power that it's with them to make a change, whether it's in their personal life, in their community, you have an advocate for life. You have a person that will stand up, and then that person will pull another person, and that person will pull another person.
Very well said. Very well said. I imagine that's one of the reasons why you take mentorship so seriously.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I had very strong women as my mentors, and And I strive, to do that for others.
You first crossed paths with UpTogether as part of the Momentum Fund, received monthly cash investments of $1,000 that you could spend however you chose. Do you remember the way you decided to spend those funds? And would you mind sharing?
Yeah. I will start with showing you what I did with my first check. The first check that I got, I went out and bought I went to Elite grocery store and bought a giant piece of fish. And we cooked it, and it was so yummy. And there was enough that we invited our neighbors over to have dinner with us and build that community, right? His kids, he came along, and it was just a really great meal. And it was a great feeling to being able to eat, sort of saying, with our own money. You know what I mean? And when I started receiving the funds, I decided to use my funds as a paycheck. So rather than going to school and continue to work, I dedicated those funds to be as my paycheck, as my job check, and then continue and get involved in school and finish my education.
That's amazing. How did that feel, being able to decide how you were going to spend those funds, not being restricted to only spending it in a certain area, and then being able to choose something that you actually wanted to do that you felt would help?
It gives me a sense of ownership, and that I could make choices and valuable choices with my money. I also I wanted to add to that I was able to do other things, like sign up my kids through like extracurricular activities, spend times with them. We took a vacation last year too, which was really special. We hadn't taken a vacation ever. This was important not only because of the family time, but because I took my kids to the house that I grew up in. And my dad still lives there. He lives in Guatemala. And it was important for them to spend time with my dad and be there with him. He's 80 years old. I know he's not going to be around forever. But I want my kids to remember him, and not just remember him, but to have fun memories with him. So that vacation was more than just being away from home and, going to I don't know, somewhere. It was more of just the family time.
That is beautiful.
Sorry, I keep on crying.
No, you're great. Thank you for being vulnerable. Wow, that is beautiful. Could you, what is you mentioned going back to the house that you grew up in? Is there some part of Guatemala and the culture that you make sure you keep with you, you hold dear to you now?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when you say earlier, I think it was the first question where like Marin County is my home, and it is my home, right? But when I go back to Guatemala, I say I'm going back home, and it's always home. And I'm there visiting, and I'm like, but I need to go back home because home is here. So one of the things that I do, I love the Guatemalan food. I love the music. And I try to teach my girls that the same, just the music, the culture, about the holidays, and try to take them over there so they can see that as well. And my dad brings that with him too. My dad is here in California with me right now because of graduation festivities, but he also brings a lot of that with him. He's a huge dancer. He's the life of a party, and so he brings that with him and to my girls, and I think that's a way for me to keep my culture, also to speak Spanish to them. Which I'm honest, sometimes it's hard because you speak English most of the day, like in my work and my school. So I come home and I'm like, keep on talking English. But lately my dad has been telling me like, no, you got to tell them in Spanish. You got to talk to them in Spanish. And it's not that I don't want to, right? It's just that it's the dynamics. So I think those are the ways that I bring the culture here with me, through the music, through food, and through my childhood stories.
I love that. You mentioned Spanish language. Can you share anything about some of the challenges that you had when you first came over here and you were trying to be a young lady in California, and some of the barriers, maybe the language barriers?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So learning English, it was hard. I was blessed enough to in Guatemala, I was going to a private school. Like I say, I live with my dad. I didn't come here because of like poverty or, things of that nature. So I had some basic English with me. So it was somewhat easy. I was able to read it in my mind and understand it. I was able to write it. I just couldn't really talk it at the time. But one of the challenges I I remember vividly is that when I was in ninth grade in high school, the girl who sat next to me used to call me stupid. She'll be like, Claudia is stupid, and just like, and I could not answer because I didn't have the practice of speaking English, of saying anything, and I didn't believe what she was saying. I just didn't like what she was saying. So that was a challenge. It's something that stuck to me forever. And not, again, not that I believe it, it's just that hopeless or that lack of power that you have with the language barrier, right? To not be able to defend yourself or say something. The language also, I think the overall cultural shock, language shock for me, it's kind of what caused me also to hang out with a lot of people that were not necessarily um invested in my best interest. You know what I mean? Like, so I got involved in a lot of like gangs and drugs and drinking, and I mean that's how I ended up homeless and that kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, but I think all those factors of that cultural shock, that not having the language, right? Not having that community, not feeling that I belong in my family, kind of led me to that.
You currently serve on an advisory committee with Marin County. Can you talk about your role there and why that's important to you?
Yeah, yeah. So I am a planning commissioner for the county. So we basically participate in hearings where they bring projects for development projects. So we go over like ordinance, policies, approving or not approving projects, amendments, and all that has to do with like city planning, right? It's important for me to be there because I bring representation. I'm the only Latina at the table, and I'm the youngest person of the committee. I've been serving there for almost a year, just over a year, and I will be serving for a 4-year term. So representation, it's important to me. I know that probably 99% of the county the Hispanic population in the county doesn't know that I'm serving in that position, but I know, and my work, or what I aim to, is to really create opportunities for low income or affordable housing for all. So I advocate through every project when possible, advocating for affordable housing.
I love that. And you mentioned a lot of people don't know. There could be someone who's watching this that they don't know the commitment that it takes to be part of the advisory committee or to get involved in their particular community. Some people think that it takes too much and they just don't have time for it. Can you talk a little bit about the time it takes for somebody to get involved, and maybe they wouldn't be as maybe discouraged from getting more involved in the community?
Yeah, so historically, I mean, even nowadays, I think a lot of our committees, or um a lot of our committees are older white people. And that is because they're retired, because they have the time to do it, right? My time commitment with the committee, we have meetings maybe twice a month, and plus some readings that we have to do in preparation for those meetings. Somebody that it's really challenging, right? Because as you're asking me, what I'm hearing is like community will say, like, well, I gotta work, I can get a day off. I can't get that time off to being able to participate. And that's very true. That's a reality for many people, right? And I'm able to do it because my schedule permits it, right? But also I feel that I'm able to do it because I make the commitment to do it, right? And if I find, like, right now when I graduated, when I find job, a full-time job, or in 2 years from now, that would still be my commitment to be there, right? So it takes, I think, a certain level of commitment and prioritize if you really want to be part of a community at that level, to be able to put that aside. And that's a way also that the funds help me to, because I was able to say, well, I don't have, this is not a working day for me. I got a school, I got class in the morning, and I make sure that my classes align with that schedule. So yeah, I don't think I can say, I wish I could say more on that, and like really encourage people to, like, there is other ways that people can get involved, right? But it does take a level of commitment, no matter what you're doing and how you're getting involved, to stay involved.
I'm grateful to you, Claudia, for your time today. Thank you for being unstoppable. Thank you for being a rose growing tall from the concrete, continuing to bloom, not just in your community, but communities, multiple communities, other communities across the country, even overseas. Thank you for your time. Congrats on your graduation, Sonoma State University.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you for everyone's words, and thank you. Thank you.